To the left, that looks like a snowman. That looks like two eyes with a triangle hat on and a carrot sticking out for a nose, and it looks like a happy face and a button under his mouth. The rest of it looks like well, something's bleeding in the back of it. That looks like something I did when I was in kindergarten, and I would probably crumple up and throw it in the trash.
Twombly, Cy Twombly, who is not one of my favorite people. I think he's a complete disaster. I know he's got a whole room to himself in the Philadelphia Museum of Art, but I think it's hype more than art.
You have to be the first person to do this crap, right? You have to be the first insane person to scribble on a piece of paper. Someone sees it and says this kid's a genius, but they're not.
For some people, art is hard to interpret because they cannot see past the surface. While some people see it negatively, others have more appreciation for art.
So this is a great example of how art is not always about the technical skill. And a lot of people get caught up in the technical skill and they'll look at that and say, my 5-year-old could do that. And maybe they could, but they don't. And when I see a 5-year-old do that and they can communicate what they want to communicate the same way Cy Twombly could, then I would say it could be as effective.
This, however, the Mondrian, is very interesting. This is a study in color, pattern, structure. There's thought behind this. This is a process that is going on.
People have been trying to define what is and isn't art for hundreds of years. Even now, there's a disagreement within the art community.
There's no definition. It could be any number of things. And I think if you look, I mean, this is just a small example. If you go from something like this, which is very traditional, very conservative, to something like that, which is much more avant-garde, to things that have no objective thing at all. It could be anything.
Art is something that makes you feel emotions or conveys a sense of beauty, however you define that word.
I guess the way I define art is usually something that I cannot do, right? Anything that I look at that I see like I can do that, I don't consider art because I'm horrible drawer, painter, I can't do anything. So if I see something I say, I can do that, I don't consider it art.
I guess art would be like any kind of genuine human expression that someone makes, usually intentionally.
My definition of art is a language that uses artifacts to convey meaning. And I got that definition over a lot of years of studying different things, and it really started with anthropology. And in anthropology, we looked at the artifacts that people made and tried to understand their culture. So after that, when I started making art, I started thinking about what the artifacts I make, what they were saying to people.
Art experts agree that the meaning of art is about your own personal reaction to it in conversation with the piece.
I mean, people spend lifetimes studying art and the things, you know, what's involved in it. I think the immediate thing is your immediate personal reaction to what you see. And that's the thing that counts more than anything. And then you work from there. Because if you have a reaction to what you're looking at, then you will have the interest yourself to go further, to find more things in that work of art. You'll take the time.
I think to get people to better understand what art is, you just have to say, I did this with intention, I did this with genuine feeling and emotion, and I put thought into it, and therefore this is an expression of myself, this is art.
How we read images, what they mean to us, is contributing to what that artwork means. They want the security of being told what the art is about, when in fact the beautiful thing about art is it's not telling you a specific thing. It's hard for people to trust that they're actually getting some kind of communication and that that's legitimate without it having a specific meaning. You know, it's part of this kind of conversation that I think art has that's really special, right? That we have power to make meaning out of these things. When we receive them as well as when we make them and sort of put them out in the world for others to experience.
Well, my first tip is just look at as much art as you can and look at art from all different time periods and really try to understand the context of the time period that each work of art was made. And I think once you start seeing how art changes over time and why it's important in each time period, you start to see where art is now and where it's going to be.
Even though art is a broad term, some are quick to disqualify certain things from being art. Most artists experience misinterpretation from their audience. However, some artists have developed different ways of responding to negative criticism.
Art being a form of communication, and that art in the 21st century means so many different things that it's very difficult to have a precise notion of what art is anymore, but that art ultimately integrates visual imagery or visual knowledge with a kind of open-ended form of communication, which makes it really wonderfully different from writing.
To me, it doesn't bother me at all. Art is about communication, but there's two types of communication. So on the one side, I'm communicating what I feel, but on the other, it's you interpreting a feeling. So it doesn't bother me if somebody interprets a different feeling than what I was trying to convey.
Some people think art is overanalyzed and taken out of context, while others disagree. So the real question is, can art be overinterpreted?
No. I think that the more they do it, probably the better it is.
I think we have to see everything. We have to interpret it to something. We have to, like this painter couldn't have just painted wheat fields. No, it has to be some cry for help, his loneliness, and why can't you just look out the window and say, I want to paint some wheat fields?
I think sometimes yes. It really depends on the work of art. I think a lot of people, especially with the classics, they do that. They'll try and look for symbolism that maybe isn't there, and they try and that's why I said it's so important to look at it from the context of the time period it was made. I think a lot of people today will look at art from a long time ago and try and use the same criteria they would use for today's art, but things change over time.
Throughout history, art has been constantly evolving, and today's artist can be more than just a painter.
Whereas when you make an image, any kind of image, even if it's a work of video or other types of cultural forms like music or dance, these are expressions that are open to interpretation, and that makes them powerful.
Well, anything that has to be designed is art, because someone had to think about how it works, how the form, what the functionality is. And so like I said, anything that has design that goes into it, sneakers, clothes, cell phones, everything is technically art.
Try and talk about art in a kind of expanded context. It's not just painting or drawing, but it's also all the stuff we do in social media. It's public space, it's architecture, it's things that are designed for our use. It's how you walk through a city. Somebody has designed that and thought about that. The way you walk through a city also produces space, produces ideas about things. So there's this whole kind of engagement there that I think it's really important for young artists to be aware of and to sort of tap into thinking about.
Whether you see a wheat field or a cry of loneliness, the true meaning of the piece is up to you.